Well, let's talk Garrett Nussmeier because he could have gone into the draft. But like when you look at the quality of this past quarterback draft, if he throws his name in there, he might have been a first round pick. And so comes back, and we know about the last two LSU quarterbacks that went from year one to year two. Both of them won the Heisman Trophy. So I understand why everybody's so excited about Garrett Nussmeier this year. I mean, that seems to be, the one that everybody's, what's Arch going to be? What's DJ Lagway going to look like in the first year as a starter? Does Lenora Sellers take that lead? But Garrett Nussmeier was a good starting quarterback in the SEC in year one as a starter. And we've seen at LSU what happens when you go to year two.
Yeah, it's funny to think about, too, because these, like they had the Bryce Underwood commitment, and then Larry Ellison comes in with the big payday in the 11th hour. But
we had the Michigan show yesterday. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you talked plenty about it. Well, we'll skip past that part. But now they're in it, with another top 5 quarterback. Bo Bentley is going to decide here soon. By the time people listen to it, he may have already decided. But these kids who are 17 are looking at LSU and are like, it's a quarterback factory. These guys have won Heisman's 2 in the past 5 seasons. Nussmeier is the odds-on favorite in a lot of places to win the Heisman this year than the offseason. And I have to take a step back. I'm like you, Andy, where it's like none of these kids then watched football during the Les Miles year. No LSU fan anywhere over the age of 20, 30, I would say, associates LSU and Heisman quarterbacks. But look, from Billy Cannon to Joe Burrow, that was the first Heisman LSU had won at any position. And in comes Jaden Daniels, wins it again. And look, if Nussmeier can just play some good football this year, that'll win him some games. He'll be better on defense, and he'll be right in that mix. But, yeah, the jump from can he make a Burrow Daniels year 1 to year 2 jump? I don't know if he can do anything
so much and like
do it.
Yeah. Are there 2 first-round receivers like those guys had too? Like it all that stuff matters.
I mean, you look back at 2019 and you kind of think, well, they had Justin Jefferson, they had Jordan, Jefferson and Chase on that team, and Terrace and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and all of these draft picks on, but Derek Stingley's an all-pro already as a top 5 pick. So
Lloyd Cushenberry, baby.
At center, he was a Mississippi State commit all the way to the day of signing day. Got offered. He's from right outside of Baton Rouge and flipped on the spot and paid off for him. And it's crazy. We're thinking about Nussmeier. I meant to say this. Do you remember, pop quiz here, LSU fans know this, and it's not a pop quiz. I'll just give the answer. They played Kansas State in that Texas Bowl, and they got waxed. Kansas State scored touchdowns on like 7 straight possessions. A lot of guys sat out. They had to play John Trey Kirkland, a wide receiver at quarterback in that game. And he had not played quarterback since he was in high school. Nussmeier was on that team, but had he played in that game, this was the final year.
Burned his red shirt.
He would burned his red shirt. He wouldn't have any college eligibility right now. He wouldn't be on his team. He would have been in the draft and probably somewhere else.
You interim staff for
shout out Brad
that.
Davis, right? I think when Pops is in the game for as long as he's been in it, he knows, hey, look, why don't you sit this one out? It's one game isn't worth what 13 or 14 can bring you in. I don't think many people realize that outside the LSU kind of atmosphere of there was a bowl game they had to play with, a kid who hadn't done it since high school, who was out there just kind of having fun with it during a coaching change. And the main catalyst of it was Nussmeier sat because he wanted to have a year of extra eligibility, which he in turn then took. As you said, he could have been a top pick, and I think he certainly would have been a first-round pick this past year just because of the crop of quarterbacks that were out there. And he decides to come back for a final year, which obviously completely changes the trajectory of LSU's season and the outlook on a playoff chances.
As you mentioned, Doug Nussmeier, Garrett's dad, longtime coach. He's in the pros now, but he's been a college offensive coordinator. He was at Michigan. He was at Alabama. He was at Florida. Funny story. My son was talking to his offensive line coach the other day, and his own line coach played offensive tackle at the big public high school in Gainesville and ended up going to play for Marshall. But when he was in 8th grade, he was a quarterback. So he's just a big athletic kid. He got injured and got replaced at quarterback. Never got the job back because he was replaced by Garrett Nussmeier. he's like, I think they made the right choice.
He's like Garrett's kind of the or coach's sons and daughters, I guess. They're kind of like military kids. I think Garrett's probably stolen a lot of jobs in a lot of different cities across the
Yep.
years before he settled in over at Marcus High. And crazy now, his brother Colton, who's a lefty, and I saw him at summer camp a year ago at LSU, and he was already taller than Doug was, who's taller than Garrett is. But he's got an LSU offer. He's got a ton of offers. On3 has him as a top 5 quarterback. So the Nussmeier tree will not end here. As soon as Garrett
Would that be the first
start talking about
lefty LSU quarterback since Rick Clausen?
No, remember they. Oh man, why would I blank? Why am I blanking on his name? McMillan.
That's right. That's right.
Played a little bit during. Again,
Wait, Max Johnson was left-handed. Is left-handed.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. See, anything that happened before in the Burrow Daniels era gets skipped over. If it happened in the middle years or before that, you just kind of forget about it.
Yeah. Now, Max Johnson, left-handed, last seen at LSU throwing a bomb to beat Texas A&M. That's right.
And he threw it behind his back against UCLA in a season opener as well. That was nearly caught. And he's still out there at UNC, so hopefully he can be healthy this year. I know he ran into some injuries, but
we know how good Nuss is. What we don't know is how good the guys blocking for him will be, because obviously LSU has to replace some excellent offensive linemen who are now in the NFL. So how does that work? Will Campbell, Emory Jones. What is that group going to look like?
Yeah, I mean, look, Will Campbell and Emory Jones stepped in as true freshmen day one and both started at tackle, left and right tackle, and they never lost a spot. So it's 3 straight years of having those two guys. Then toss in Dellinger and Miles Frazier, a high school signee and a transfer. Those guys had started 2 years straight. So they had gone, I guess it was 3 years. Yeah, straight years of the same O-lineman, 2 straight years, I guess it would have been in full. But now you have to replace everyone, because even DJ Chester, your center, they went out and got Braylon Moore from Virginia Tech, who started at center for many years. Now Chester can kind of go back to a natural spot at guard, which there was no open spot for him because those guys were holding down the jobs. I guess to answer the question, it's like TBD. I think that week 1 against Clemson in a really good front, we're going to see pretty quickly what they look like. And look, they were great in pass pro last year, even when they weren't. And look, the biggest knock on Garrett probably is that he doesn't use his legs enough. Like, he's athletic enough to run it. He just doesn't, because he's thinking, hey, I can make every throw, so no big deal. Jaden Daniels would just run and grab those 7 yards, 10 yards. So would Burrow. But I think we'll see more of Nussmeier doing that this year. I do think Joe Sloan can rip him enough to say, hey, get out there and just get the first down for us. But on the
I think, go back to Texas A&M and the Florida games. If he escapes a few times instead of trying to make something happen in the pocket, those games may go differently.
Year 1 starter, those types of decisions are commonplace, obviously. So I think that year 1 to year 2 jump, I guess moments like that, Andy, is what you're talking about. Like really big games where it could swing your whole season. Are you making the right decision? You throwing it away? Are you scrambling for 5 yards? Like it's a game of inches, certainly, in moments like that.
I talked to Cade Klubnik, the guy that will be starting against LSU in game 1. And he said, because he kind of blossomed as a runner last year. And he said his first year as a starter, he didn't know when to run and when to stay in the pocket. And Dabo said the same thing. Dabo was like, he used to drive me insane because he just sit there tapping the ball instead of running. And that's the sort of thing that year 2 as a starter can bring.
Yeah. And look, again, we talked about this O-line thing deep into the season with LSU last year when they had all those guys, because they weren't great running the football. Like, as I was saying, like even when Nuss would get pressured, I mean, they faced a lot of good D lines. He's so pocket mobile and smart with it that he could sidestep you and throw off platform and make something happen. And he reads defenses so well to know where pressure's coming and when, that it sort of negated that if that ever became an issue for him. But they just couldn't run the football consistently. And Caden Durham sparked him in that South Carolina game, and then as a true freshman, and they relied on him a bit more, down the stretch. Now you've got him in year 2, but I think that's the question going in. 1, who are the O-linemen, and I think that through spring, we got a feel for it. They took 2 transfers that both are likely to start. Josh Thompson out of Northwestern was one of the more highly coveted transfers to hit the portal on the O-line. And then I mentioned Braylon Moore should be their center. So you've got 2 guys, right? And then your 2 tackles are 2 guys who've been waiting in the wings. Look, Tyree Adams at left tackle was a top 100 player coming out of New Orleans, regardless of position. Weston Davis at right tackle was a 5-star. They flipped from A&M. He's an above the rim basketball player on a Beaumont United team that was top 25 in the country. So Brian Kelly's known for O-line tight end, right? Like he knows how to recruit in the trenches. Brad Davis has done an excellent. He's the only coach that was retained from the Orgeron era and is still on staff right now with Kelly. And that 1-2 punch of evaluating guys and getting them and developing them, like we've seen it, it's worked. They also go after very athletic guys where, is the pass pro there? Yeah, more often than not. But is the physicality there? I think that's the biggest question of this offseason.
Yeah. And I have a question about one other position group on the offense before we move to the defense, which is obviously a hot topic. But first, we're going to talk about Roback. That's right. I'm wearing the performance hoodie right now. But the shorts, the joggers, the T-shirts, the polos, they're all perfect for summer, any occasion, anywhere you go. You can wear it to work on a casual day, wear it to the bar, wear it to the golf course, you name it. RHOBACK.com. Load up on the performance hoodies because, again, people will steal them. They are incredibly comfortable. Use the code Andy for 20% off your first order. Roback.com, code Andy for 20% off your first order. RHOBACK.com. Okay, before we get to the defense, I do want to talk targets for Garrett Nussmeier because he's got some interesting ones. Aaron Anderson comes back, but also they get Nick Anderson, who played very well at Oklahoma in 2023, was injured most of last year. Barrion Brown from Kentucky, who has all the physical tools. And I'm intrigued by what this could be.
Yeah, look, Aaron Anderson ended up being their most consistent guy a year ago. He's back. Xavier Thomas, who had transferred back to Louisiana from State and had been a starter for State for multiple years and was putting up 500-600 yards at State without any quarterback help, which was solid. And I think he's going to be a kind of a utility weapon of sorts for him. Barrion Brown stole the show, Andy, in spring. There was no doubt it was like, okay, yeah, like Nick Anderson's still a little banged up, obviously. They brought Destin Hill back from FSU. He was a top 100 guy coming out of high school, New Orleans native. But I think you've got to start with Brown because he's healthy, not been injured at any point. Both Hill and Nick Anderson are coming off of injuries. But boy, Barrion Brown, he went to Kentucky. He was a top 100 player coming out of high school, coming out of Nashville. And he tore it up when Will Levis was the quarterback. And he was still putting up numbers with a quarterback who retired from football now. He was their weapon. So, and let it also be known, we mentioned Aaron Anderson and Xavier Thomas. The only guy that may be better than them in the return game in the SEC is Barrion Brown, who is tied for the record all time for touchdowns on special teams. So they'll have some decisions to make there, which feels like light years ago. But remember the first 2 years of the Kelly era, they fair caught every single punt because they could not find anyone who could catch the ball and return it. That was the beginning of the Brian Kelly era.
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem anymore, but it could be very interesting because Barrion Brown, they're pumped about him at LSU. Dane Key, they love him at Nebraska. The 2 former Kentucky receivers could have very, very big years. So let's move to the defense because that's the side of the ball that
I'll add. Look, Mason Taylor was on the team for Jaden Daniels, but why would Jaden throw it to Mason 7 yards down the field when he could just run it? But that's Nuss's favorite target. They love Bauer Sharp, and he was OU's leading receiver this past year after every receiver on the team, including Nick Anderson, got hurt. So toss him in there as a guy who I think Nussmeier loves the tight end. Obviously, Mason Taylor was a really great player here, set the school records for both catches and receiving yards. But expect Bauer Sharp and obviously Trey'Dez Green, your 6'6" freaky basketball player, caught you a couple touchdowns in the bowl game, to be pretty involved.